Good morning, good afternoon, good evening Internet, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Economical Rides. Join me today as I take my penultimate ride on my wonderful 2022 Royal Enfield Classic 350. Penultimate ride, I hear you ask? Yes, well, stay tuned and I'll explain what I've been up to. Hi there. So penultimate ride on the Classic? What's that all about? Well, make sure you are sitting comfortably and I'll begin. As you no doubt know by now, I decided against buying the Super Meteor because at the moment it doesn't really solve any problems for me. In the course of considering buying the Super Meteor, I did have to get the Classic 350 valued by the dealer because the only way I could possibly afford the Super Meteor would have been with one of my bikes as a trade-in. It more or less had to be the Classic 350 because A, Buddy is Buddy and we have a special relationship, and more importantly, B, the Classic 350 is 6 months newer, it was €1,000 more expensive to buy in the first place, so of course it had the most money tied up in it. I was more or less happy with the valuation the dealer gave me for the Classic. Not ecstatic, but I thought the value was more or less fair, all things considered. Once I got home, it took me about 5 days to finally decide that I couldn't justify the expense of the Super Meteor, and for a while, that was that. Then, after a couple more days, I started thinking about the valuation the dealer had given me for the Classic 350. I suddenly realised that, at that valuation, I wouldn't have to spend too much money to get myself into a brand new Himalayan, which could then become the trail bike I've been saving up for since I decided that I'd like a bike for the trails. Also, bear in mind that the Himalayan was the bike I was saving up for when Royal Enfield announced the Meteor, and I decided to buy Buddy instead. So having both Buddy and a Himalayan would complete a weird sort of circle for me, in a way. So I took another couple of days to mull things over. Of course it was going to hurt to lose the Classic. I changed my mind backwards and forwards several times before finally concluding that however much I would like to keep the Classic, it did make more sense for me to have the two bikes I currently need in the garage, rather than to soldier on with the Meteor, the Classic, and no bike for the trails. I did look at the option of keeping the Classic and waiting a few more months, by which time I could probably have bought the Himalayan in addition to the other two bikes. But bearing in mind that I only managed to ride a bike about once a week, having two bikes has been a bit decadent, but having 3 bikes would be crazy. That would just be too many bikes sat around being infrequently used. With 2 bikes, I've more or less managed to use them alternately, so neither of them has ever been overly neglected. I'm not ruling out a third bike in the future, but for this year at least, I wanted to keep things as simple as possible, so 2 bikes it had to be. So finally, once I decided for myself that I would limit myself to just the 2 bikes, I rang the dealer to ask if the same valuation for the Classic would be applied if I chose to buy a Himalayan instead. They said, yes, of course, that's the value we would give you for your bike. It's not dependent upon which bike you intend to buy. So following that, I asked them to give me a price for a Himalayan in the spec I preferred, and once that price was agreed, I told them to go ahead and order it. So now, the Himalayan has been ordered, and I only have a week or 2 left with the Classic. The last ride with the Classic will be the ride to the dealership to drop it off and pick up the new Himalayan. After a slightly dodgy start, the Classic really won me over, and now, after 1 year, I really appreciate its virtues, and in many ways, I prefer it to the Meteor. I just don't prefer it to Buddy the Meteor, if that makes sense. Buddy is more than just a Meteor to me. He's the bike I bought thinking it would be the last bike I ever buy, I bought him thinking that would be my bike for life, and so far I still feel that way about him. Buying Buddy was such a big deal to me at the time that I decided to start the channel just to document the beginnings of our time together. So although the Classic did nothing to disappoint me, it never really managed to displace Buddy in my affections. I'm aware that a lot of my viewers and subscribers here are Classic owners or fans of the Classic, and I really hope that you're not too upset to hear that soon, unfortunately, there will be no more Classic content on this channel. Well, at least for a while. I'm not ruling out getting another Classic in the future because in a lot of ways it suits me better than the Meteor. If Buddy ever had to go, I don't think I'd be replacing him with another Meteor. I would almost certainly replace him with another Classic 350. It's just more my style really. It was just that when I bought Buddy, of course the Classic 350 wasn't yet available. So maybe there will be another Classic 350 in my future, or indeed a successor or an upgrade to the Classic 350. If, for instance, the Classic 500 or the rumoured Classic 650 come to fruition, those are certainly bikes I would be interested in owning. So hopefully there will still be Royal Enfield Classics in my future, and that may be of interest to you, but for now, logic must prevail, and the current Classic needs to make space for the new Himalayan. Unfortunately, I'm not able to start collecting bikes as much as I would like to keep all three. I have a busy life, and currently 2 bikes is about as much as I can deal with in terms of riding them, dealing with the logistics of insurance, maintenance, storage, workshop appointments, etc. After much deliberation, I decided that right now it would be best for me to have the 2 bikes which cover the most bases. Adding the Himalayan will enable me to explore the trails and experience a different kind of motorcycling for the first time in 37 years of riding, so it definitely adds a lot to the fleet. So that's my decision. Believe me, it wasn't made lightly, but ultimately I think it is the right decision for me. Unfortunately, with the limitations placed upon me by real life, I sometimes have to put my own needs above those of the channel. Well, for now I do. I hope you can all understand, and I thank each and every one of you for your support. I understand if you feel as though my channel is now going to be of less interest to you without the Classic being a major part of it. Mind you, having said that, Ruby's still going to be here, so hopefully that's enough to keep you here. Ruby says she thinks it probably should be, obviously. She's such a diva. But anyway, if you own a Classic, rest assured I still think you own a cool bike, and it's a bike I will always remember fondly, and as I mentioned previously, possibly even revisit. It gave me great pleasure in the year I owned it, but my needs have changed since I bought it, and reluctantly, being realistic, I have to move it on. So, enough sad thoughts, time to pull myself together and be positive about this. It's time for me to look forward to new adventures with my brand new Himalayan. The Classic will feature one last time on the channel. I'll film it for posterity before handing it back to the dealer. It deserves one last appearance, and I really hope the next owner enjoys it as much as I did and takes just as good care of it. I filmed it when I picked it up. It only seems fitting to film it when I hand it back. I know, I never did give it a name. There is a reason for that. Maybe I'll explain that in a future video. I hope to see you in the next video, where hopefully I will be picking up the new Himalayan and reluctantly saying goodbye to my lovely Classic 350. Now that the decision has finally been made, I am both sad and excited at the same time, which is an odd feeling to be honest. So, to lift the mood, here's Ruby devouring another sausage. Thanks for watching. Soon it will be time for me to hit the trails. Cheers. So Ruby, what did you think of that video? Rubbish. Thank you for looking after the house for Daddy. Would you like a sausage? Silly question. Hang on then. So these sausages are from Scott and Wolfie. Thank you, Scott and Wolfie. Sausages. Thanks, Scott and Wolfie. Nice one. Nice one.